This is the Palin Update on SarahNet Radio. I'm Kevin Scholla.
Atrocious, unaffordable, cumbersome, burdensome, evil policy of Obama's, and that is Obamacare.
As the implementation of Obamacare grows ever closer, the time to stand up and fight is more important than ever. Governor Palin has been on the front lines, as has today's guest, Dr. Ben Carson. The world-renowned neurosurgeon is here to tell us why Obamacare should be a no-go and how to stop it. Plus, we'll discuss a myriad of other issues. Dr. Ben Carson coming up in a moment. A very happy birthday to Mr. Todd Palin. A brand new Commonwealth Common Sense with Susan Stimson on the way. And just ahead, our latest edition of Steel Resolve with Sarah Steelman. It's our pleasure today to have a man with us who is a true American success story, one of the top physicians the country has ever known, now retired but busier than ever in other respects. Dr. Ben Carson, great to have you here today on the Palin Update on SarahNet Radio.
My pleasure.
Now, first of all, congratulations on an incredible career, and how's retirement treated you so far?
Well, I thought retirement was going to be relaxing, that I was going to play golf and learn some new languages and learn how to play the organ. Well, maybe that'd be my second retirement. It's been very busy.
Well, you got to be in the White House first to play golf a lot, right?
Well, that's true. That's something to look forward to.
Now, obviously, a lot of people knew you for years due to the pioneering work you did and your surgical procedures. Movies were made about your incredible life, but then you made a huge splash with conservatives at the 2013 National Prayer Breakfast. You delivered a tremendous speech, and you touched on many conservative approaches and really, I like to say, common sense approaches.
Well, that's exactly what I always say. And people say it's conservative, but I say it's logical. It's things that make sense. It's things that have worked in the past and for other societies. So why wouldn't it work now?
Yeah, I know you had said before you're an independent, you're in the party of logic, and I love that line. And when you gave that speech, you did it all with President Obama and Vice President Biden sitting right there. Going into that speech, did you ever think it would get such coverage?
No, I didn't. I thought there'd be a day or two of buzz, and that would be pretty much it. I had no idea it resonated with so many people. And I've gotten so many letters and emails from people across the country, particularly elderly people who said they were just waiting to die. They had given up on America, and now they were reinvigorated. And, what I'm hoping is that we can wake people up because, they've been beaten into submission, and they believe that nobody else thinks like them. And they just sort of shrink away and hope nobody notices them. This is not America.
That is just sad to hear that, to hear someone say they're waiting to die. I mean, yet not unbelievable at this point what's going on. What about Obama and Biden sitting there? You talked about things that they're completely opposed to, at least policy-wise. Could you feel the smoke coming out of their ears or see it at all?
Actually, when I speak, I go into a zone, and I don't even pay attention to who's there. So they were zoned out, quite frankly.
Now, we've seen that before. Now, you remember Vice President Biden's the guy who said to just shoot it while someone's at your door randomly up in the air. So what should happen now? Obamacare is inching closer to implementation, and, there's a debate within. We know what Democrats are going to do. Republicans are talking about, what do they do here? Do you defund? Do you delay? What do you think should happen here? What's the best way to stop this?
Well, it's interesting that, what's going on in Syria, the president backed off, and he said, for something this important, it's better to have a united front. So, we need to, find out what Congress thinks and get everybody walking, on the same path. And yet, enacting the biggest governmental program in the history of the United States, you didn't need that consensus? I'm not sure that makes a whole lot of sense. But in terms of what should happen, I've been talking to a number of congressmen, and I said, the majority of people are not in favor of this. It's wreaking havoc on the job market, and it's completely destroying any chances for a recovery that we have. So you have a choice here. You can fund it or you cannot fund it. And because you're the legislative branch, you can decouple it, so it doesn't have to be the same bill. You can make it two separate bills. You can vote, pass continuing resolution to fund the government, and you can vote no money for Obamacare. It will, of course, then have to go to the Senate, but you would make a big fanfare. Say, we voted to fund the government. We did not vote to fund, the Affordable Care Act. Then if the Senate tries to put it back together, it's on them. And that's what they ought to do. I don't think it's a complex legal maneuver at all.
During that prayer breakfast speech, you blasted political correctness, too, and you continue to do so. Why is PC so dangerous?
Because, it puts a wet blanket over conversation. And that, of course, is exactly what Saul Alinsky advocated. If you want to change a society, you want to do it without a discussion because it's much difficult when people can talk about it. So, the thing that he really advocated is that you make the majority believe that their opinion is the minority opinion and that yours is the majority opinion. If you can co-opt the media in the process, you're far ahead of the game. But never discuss anything with them. He says if you discuss things with your opponent, that humanizes them, and your job is to demonize them. And, a lot of the secular left has internalized this, and it's exactly their playbook. And you have to understand their playbook. And, I'm trying to expose what they're doing to the people so that they understand what they're up against. They recognize it when they see it, and they're not so easily manipulated by it.
Now, after that prayer breakfast speech, you followed that up with a wonderful speech at CPAC. I was there for that one, covering Governor Palin, and you spoke in the same room just before her. I know you met her there, too. What is your take on Sarah Palin?
Well, I've always liked Sarah Palin. I think she's a terrific person. I think she's very smart. She's done a lot with what she's had. She had very high approval ratings in Alaska before, everybody started trying to savage her. And I totally understand why they tried to savage her, because she's an iconoclast. You can't bring somebody like that into a place like Washington, D.C., which is full of icons, and have her, disassemble them like she did in Alaska to bring some justice and clarity to what was going on. So not only the Democrats, but the Republicans, too. They don't want somebody like that. It's like bringing a bull into a china shop.
Yeah, we've seen that, too, with her not at the convention this past year, and you've gotten some of the Palin treatment, too. I mean, they've done some of the same maneuvers to you of late. Now, as far as your CPAC speech, Doctor, the crowd loved you, and I think part of it is you have that style of talking like a person, not a teleprompter reader. It really resonates.
Well, when you actually believe what you're saying, it's easy to be that way. When you're trying to be consistent with some type of image, or some kind of ideology, then it's a little more difficult.
What about the way race is used in America today? People disagree with Obama; they're labeled a racist. That's a dirty tactic. You mentioned Alinsky, and it hurts a lot of people. And we just keep seeing it. I mean, it just seems acceptable now. MSNBC folks, they just racist, and no one even bats an eye.
Well, I've been telling people, I've been speaking in front of enormous crowds all over the country, and I said, guess what? If you stand up for what you believe, you're going to be called some kind of ist, a racist, a sexist, an ageist, some kind of ist. I said, get over it. We have more important things to do. Don't worry about it.
A few weeks ago, we remembered Martin Luther King's speech 50 years later, and those of us who try to live by King's actual message often have a hard time dealing with the way it's picked apart by some today. Do you as well?
Well, I just think it's somewhat ironic that, the dream is sort of summarized in what he said at the end, and that is, I look for a day when people are judged by the content of their character and not the color of their skin. And yet, the secular progressive left, they castigate anybody if the color of their skin happens to be black, and they happen to be a conservative. So, no. his dream has not been accomplished as long as they're doing that.
Tell us about Carson Scholars.
Well, some years ago, I would go into schools and I would see all these trophies, all-state basketball, state wrestling, this, that, and the other. The quarterback was a big man on campus, but the academic superstars, nobody said boo. And I was also aware of some statistics that showed us coming in number 21 out of 22 in an international survey looking at the ability to solve science and math problems. So we started taking kids starting in the 4th grade from all backgrounds who achieved at the highest academic levels and also demonstrated humanitarian qualities, and putting them on the same kind of pedestal that we do to all-state athletes, having nothing against athletics, by the way. But the thing that will maintain our position in the world is not the ability to shoot a 25-foot jump shot, but the ability to solve a quadratic equation, so we've got to start prioritizing. And they get a scholarship that goes into an account, and they get an accounting each year in terms of how much it's worth. And when they go off to college, they get the money and interest. The school gets a trophy every bit as impressive as all the sports trophies. They get to go to a banquet. They get to wear a medal. They get local press attention. And, we started out with 25 scholarships, for one in each county in Maryland 17 years ago, and now we're in all 50 states. And we also put in reading rooms, and we target especially Title I schools, where a lot of kids come from homes with no books. They go to a school with no library. And those are the ones who are most likely to drop out. 30% of people who enter high school in this country don't finish. And we can't afford that in a technological age. So, we've been working to spread those around the country as well. And this program has been recognized with the Simon Award, only given to one philanthropic organization each year. Comes with a check for $250,000. The Ronald McDonald House Charity Award, only one organization in the country per year, also a 6-figure check, and other awards as well. But it's not done for the awards, it's done for the effect, because many teachers have told us when we put a scholar in their classroom, the GPA of the whole class goes up, because now it's not just the quarterback. It's that kid right there who's so smart who's brought this recognition to our school.
And this is personal to you, right? Because you were that kid, right? While guys like me were goofing off on the football field, you knew what the heck was going on.
Well, I realize how much potential is being wasted. And we can't afford it because, if we lose our position as the pinnacle nation in the world, we're going to be replaced by someone else. And the likelihood is that they're not going to be nearly as benign as we are. And the world could easily go back to the way it used to be pre-America.
So what is next for Dr. Ben Carson? I know you've been speaking a lot, including a speech in Georgia with our friend Martha Zoller in attendance recently. She's one of our Palin Patriot contributors. And your best-selling book, America the Beautiful, Rediscovering What Made This Nation Great, still going strong. You're also, a weekly column at the Washington Times. So, like you said, this isn't a golf retirement.
Well, and I'm also writing a new book, which I hope to have finished by the end of next week, called One Nation. And it's really to help people realize that we, the people, are not each other's enemies. The enemies are those who are trying to divide us up constantly and treat us like little puppets.
You said Obamacare has taken the joy from doctors. We need to surgically excise it. Will we?
I certainly hope so. I'm telling people you got to grow a spine. From what I'm seeing around the country, I believe if those who oppose Obamacare would really do it on principle, they would have no lack of support. Right now, the reason of support is a little wishy-washy is because, historically they've seen these people stand up one week, stand down the next week. You grow a spine, the people will be there, I guarantee it.
Dr. Carson, we look forward to seeing what's next for you, and you're welcome here anytime.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
For more on Dr. Carson, including an easy way to grab his book, America the Beautiful, just go to realbencarson.com. That's realbencarson.com. Our friend Todd Palin celebrated his birthday this past week, and his wife, Governor Sarah Palin, poured on the accolades to her husband with that typical Palin humor, charm, honesty, and love. Palin writing, quote, "Happy birthday, Todd. He's finally as old as I am. We've been away hunting this week in a quote-unquote undisclosed location. It's that time of year when Alaskans fill their freezers for the winter with homegrown organic protein. As my dad likes to remind folks, vegetarian is an old native word for lousy hunter." Todd is still up north, and I'll head back out again later with more family. It was nice to get away from the real world for a little while out in the remote tundra. It's always a blessing being in the great outdoors, and especially to share Todd's birthday out there with friends. And it's always a bit of an adventure. One of our buddies got a bear, swearing he saved all our hides, as one evening I was engrossed in picking blueberries when the bear silently snuck up behind us. Granted, our buddies do exaggerate their hunting escapades. It's part of the lore. I'll post some of the photos snapped on a few quasi-sunny hours we found. Hope you enjoy them and are also able to get outside and enjoy God's beautiful creation, even if your dinner's wrapped in cellophane, not fur. Appreciate the bounty. And Governor Palin did post some great pictures, so you can check those out on Facebook or through Twitter. From all of us here at Saranet Radio, happy birthday to Todd Palin, a great man in many ways. We appreciate all he does for America. To see any of the governor's posts in their entirety, visit Sarah Palin's Facebook page or follow her on Twitter at Sarah Palin USA.
It's time for Commonwealth Common Sense with Susan Stimson and Kevin Scholla.
Susan Stimson, welcome back.
Thank you, Kevin. Great to be here.
Now, Syria has been on the minds of so many Americans of late, really the top news story mostly anywhere, people waiting and watching to see what this administration is going to do. They've put their cards on the table, no doubt about it, and it's very interesting in a way because you have some strange bedfellows here with a lot of libertarians and Tea Partiers teaming up with some far-left liberals here saying no, and then a lot of the establishment from both parties saying yes. What have you noticed in Virginia?
Well, I will start off by saying that I'm a wife of a former Marine. He served for 24 years, and he's been in Afghanistan, and there is definitely there is wreckage from the war in Iraq and the war in Afghanistan, over 3,000 dead and many, many people that are wounded. So when you're making a decision where you may put troops in harm's way or you may impact, our country's security, you certainly have to you take it very seriously. In Virginia, we happen to have Eric Cantor, who is the House Majority Whip, and he's a congressman here. And then the rest of the Republican delegation are on the other side of Congressman Cantor did come out in support of striking in Syria, as did Congressman Boehner. But I think what we are seeing unfold is a lack of confidence that the American people have in their leader at the top, and that is President Obama. And I think they just don't have confidence in his follow-through on this and making the decision on this. And so I think the bottom line, that's the struggle that you see right now. I mean, Great Britain has voiced the fact that they don't want to proceed with doing anything in Syria, and now even France is coming back saying, on second thought, I think maybe we don't want to do anything in Syria.
What do you think of those who were against Iraq and George W. Bush and now in a very similar situation and a worse one to most of us? Now they're saying go for it. Does this really show partisan politics in its worst form? I mean, they're judging on we're going to send our troops or act as a Syrian Air Force based on what party's in the White House?
I just think the hypocrisy of President Obama and Senator Kerry, who is now the Secretary of State. If you think back on what they said during the times of our war with Iraq and Afghanistan, and now they're the ones leading the charge to basically commit an act of war or to engage Syria, there are going to be consequences of this. And I will say that it is horrific looking at those pictures and knowing just what a depraved mind it takes to kill over 500 children, just innocent people, in such an inhumane way. But it's not just an American problem, it's a world problem. And right now, we are the only ones that are even talking about doing something other than France and somewhat with Canada. And I think the fact that the president has dithered for so long on this that any operational advantage that we would have had within the first 48 hours is now gone, and our president is being made fun of by, Vladimir Putin in the Soviet Union.
Yeah, the other thing that's alarmingly hypocritical here is you see a lot of those who are supporting this, they don't care. You mentioned Great Britain, other countries that right away said no way. They say, well, that doesn't matter. Yet when it's come to some other social issues like gay rights and other things, they've come in and said, well, look what Europe's doing. So, I mean, they use examples of other nations when they agree with them and then say, well, it doesn't matter what they do if they disagree.
That's exactly right. And I guess, the bottom line is, does this pose a direct threat to American security? We can lob some bombs in there. I don't think that we're even certain who it is that would come in to replace Assad if we were able to even take him out. I know Senator McCain has been out there very forcefully speaking about, no, these are moderates, these are the good guys. But then, of course, you have the video of the people that they captured and brutally murdered. So there's just too much that's in question on this, and we have a president who likes to lead from behind, and unfortunately what it is doing for our stature around the world is it is diminishing it, and I think that even the American people don't have the confidence in their commander-in-chief to make a decision in a decisive manner.
Well, Americans don't want this, and if you had to go in anywhere, Iran is the place you're looking at, and most don't want to go in anywhere, but certainly not Syria, and it would be Iran, not Syria. And also you have a president who seemingly is out there, will let us know exactly the day, time, and whenever these bombs are coming. I mean, he telegraphs every move. Every time you hear any general or any former military person of any stature speak, they tell you this is a terrible approach overall, no matter who you're dealing with. And you mentioned Putin. I mean, could you imagine the former KGB is actually being praised and maybe given more of a thumbs up for his leadership than our American president and vice president? You could not make this up.
Yes, and I would say, as you break it down, just here in Virginia, we do have Congressman Cantor here, and I know that he's privy to things that we are not. And I'm sure that he does want to, to support in a united way for our country. I think that the congressmen, as they go back to their individual districts, they are hearing very loud and clear from the people, do not engage in this, do not engage. And so I think you're seeing every day, you're seeing support for this resolution. It's dropping.
Susan Stimson, thank you so much. The world is watching this, and we will be as well.
Thank you, Kevin.
Susan Stimson in Virginia. More Commonwealth Common Sense next week. Now, our weekly commentary, Steel Resolve. Here's Sarah Steelman.
Thanks, Kevin. Anemic is a word frequently used by economists to describe our economy and job growth. The definition of anemic is lacking vitality, listless, and weak. Synonyms for anemic include words like feeble, weak, insipid, wishy-washy, spiritless, ineffectual, or ineffective. This past Friday's job report was clearly anemic. 152,000 private jobs were created in August, and June and July were revised down by 74,000 jobs. Unemployment rate dropped slightly because people who have been unemployed are no longer looking for work. In fact, only 63.2% of working-age Americans have a job or are looking for one, the lowest proportion since 1978. This is not a good prognosis for economic growth for next quarter, nor is it good for our American spirit, because the human toll of unemployment on people's lives can be devastating. It follows that our country is anemic as well. The economic and tax policies, Obamacare, deficit spending, bigger government, the crisis in Syria, and mostly the lack of leadership in this country are the cause of our anemic condition. Leadership that is feeble, weak, wishy-washy, and ineffectual causes not only a listless economy, but a spiritless country. So, It's up to us, you and me, to keep trying to do what we can individually and with our families and churches and communities to keep that American spirit of optimism alive, because it sure ain't coming from the leaders we are electing. This is Sarah Steelman for SarahNet Radio.
Tune in again next week for another segment of Steel Resolve right here on the Palin Update. The Palin Update, including Commonwealth Common Sense and Steel Resolve, is on demand and available for download. So just head to SarahNetRadio.net, pick the show you want to hear, and you can listen anywhere, anytime. Well, that'll just about do it for this edition of the Palin Update on SarahNet Radio. Visit SarahNetRadio.net for continuing coverage of Governor Palin. Also, follow along on Twitter at SarahNet Radio, at Kevin Scholla, at Susan B. Stimson, and at Sarah_Steelman. We're on Facebook, too, so like SarahNet Radio and like Kevin Scholla. Palin Patriots is our feature on SarahNet.net. There you can check out the writings from our great panel of contributors, including Martha Zoller. And I'm doing some writing for Breitbart News. Just go to Breitbart.com and search Kevin Scholla. I want to thank Sarah Steelman, Susan Stimson, and everyone here at SarahNet Radio. Thanks to Dr. Ben Carson. And thank you for listening today. Please be sure to join us again next time for another edition of the Palin Update. I'm Kevin Scholla. Have a pleasant day.